Hogue target. Here's a question. How do new cars from all over the world get transported overseas? Say hello to one giant answer in the form of the Hogue target. It's pretty distinctive thanks to its blunted bulkhead design, making it look more like a Tesla Cybertruck than a ship. But despite its appearance, this is the largest pure car and truck carrier in the world. Measuring in at over 650 feet long and 120 feet wide, the 14-deck vessel has a maximum deck space of almost 770,000 square feet. That means you could fit 2 standard soccer pitches end to end on each of the loadable decks. Plus, just how much can this floating cargo hold carry? Well, it boasts being able to transport up to 8,500 cars in one voyage. So, if each of these cars had an average length of about 14.7 feet, the line of them loading into this enormous ocean vessel would be almost 24 miles long. That's one hell of a conga line. BHP Billiton. This may look like a regular freight train to most people, but this is actually one of the legendarily long BHP Billiton iron ore trains that traverse the Australian deserts. Just look at the sheer length of them. They look like massive metal snakes winding their way across the landscape. And this isn't even their final form. In 2001, BHP achieved new heights, or more accurately new lengths, when they broke the world record for longest and heaviest freight train. Running between Yandy Mine and Port Hedland in Western Australia, the 682-carriage train reached a final length of 4.5 miles long. This required 8 diesel locomotives to convey over 90,000 wet tons of iron ore. In total, the gross tonnage of the entire convoy weighed almost 110,000 tons, which is about the same amount as 488 Statues of Liberty. I guess you could say this was the kind of world record they'd been training for. Saturn V rocket. In all the history of human spaceflight, there's no rocket quite as majestic as NASA's gargantuan Saturn V. Standing at a huge 363 feet tall, it's taller than an American football field is long. And even though it was used to launch American astronauts to the moon in the 1960s and 1970s, this granddaddy of spaceflight is still the most powerful rocket ever built. It could launch massive payloads of 50 tons to the moon or 130 tons into Earth's orbit. Not to mention it weighed 3,100 tons when fully fueled at liftoff. That's a hell of a lot of weight to fling up into the atmosphere, so it's a good thing that it generated 7.6 million pounds of thrust at launch. According to NASA, for that amount of fuel, you could drive a car that gets 30 miles to the gallon around the world 800 times. Now that's what I call a road trip. The American Dream. Nope, that's not a rendering issue. Say hello to the undisputed daddy of all stretched limousines. This is the hilariously named American Dream, and reaching an incredible 100 feet long, you can certainly see why. It was created back in the 1980s when one wild car customizer, Jay Orberg, set out to pursue his dream of creating the world's longest car. It was initially based on a 1970s Cadillac Eldorado like this one, but after extensive modifications the car was barely recognizable, save for the front grille. By the time it was finished, this limo had 26 wheels, a hinge in the middle, and 2 driver cabins. But it wouldn't be the real American Dream without a jacuzzi, one of which was installed at the rear along with a helipad. With all these ostentatious trimmings, this car was valued at around $2 million back in the 1980s. But tragically, this American Dream wasn't long for reality. Being almost impossible to use unless it was going in a straight line, as well as getting a paltry 1 mile to the gallon, the limo didn't see much action. And by 2013, it had been left to rot in a car lot. Seems like this American Dream turned into a real nightmare. Russian Zuber. They say that everything is bigger in America, but whoever said that clearly hasn't seen this gigantic Russian hovercraft. The Russian Zuber is a 187-foot-long, 350-ton landing vessel that holds the Guinness World Record for world's largest hovercraft. This air-cushioned behemoth is used by the Russian military to move troops and equipment across land and water. It can even venture across unprepared coastlines. While this makes them huge and deadly amphibious assault vehicles, just how much can these inflatable leviathans carry without sinking? When put to the test, their maximum displacement weight of 555 tons can transport up to 3 main battle tanks, 10 armored vehicles, or 140 fully equipped army personnel each. That may not seem like much, but by way of comparison, the US equivalent landing craft air cushion has less than half that maximum displacement weight at just 195 tons. That means it can only support one main battle tank or 4 light armored vehicles. Can someone tell the President of the United States not to tweet about Russia anymore? I don't fancy an invasion led by those terrifying hover mammoths. Antonov 225 Maria. Is it a bird? Is it a plane? Well, yes, it's a plane, but not like any plane you've ever laid your eyes on before. This is the Antonov AN-225 Maria, the heaviest and largest single fuselage airplane in the world. This strategic airlift cargo aircraft was designed in the Ukraine back when it was still under Soviet control in the 1980s. Its initial purpose was similar to that of the NASA crawlers, to transport the Soviet spacecraft Buran to its launching pad in Kazakhstan. To support these colossal payloads during landing and takeoff, the AN-225 was designed with 32 wheels across its landing gear, also giving its giant body additional maneuverability and support. With a colossal 288-foot wingspan, the wings of this plane are as long as 4 18-wheelers set end to end, and they're not just for show. Each wing holds 3 giant turbofan engines where most commercial airplane wings only hold 1. With the extra power behind it, the AN-225 can fly with a maximum payload of over 500,000 pounds. That means this front and rear loading Sky Mammoth can be used to transport almost anything, from huge locomotives like trams to the heaviest single piece of cargo ever transported via air, a generator for an American power plant weighing 189 tons. Incredibly, the latter big lift wasn't even max capacity for the plane. But nothing big enough's come along to really put it to the test yet. It seems Russia has laid undisputed claim to the title of Heavy Sky High Lifters, producing both the largest helicopter and the heaviest plane in the world. Next up, world's largest frisbee. Airlander 10. There's one real standout feature about the Airlander 10. And no, it's not that its rear looks like a gigantic bubble butt. From nose to tip, this blimp-like aircraft measures in at a huge 302 feet long, with plans announced in 2020 to extend that even further to 320 feet in length. That'll make it at least 45 feet lengthier than the previously mentioned Antonov 225 Maria, which hits just 275 feet long. The helium-filled hull, clever aerodynamics, and vectored thrust of the Airlander's engines make air travel in this Sky Beluga much more efficient than traditional planes. That's because most of the airframe's weight, which tops the scales at just 44,100 pounds, is countered by the helium's natural buoyancy. So assuming it was carrying its maximum payload of 10 tons, it would produce approximately 75% fewer emissions than competitor aircrafts in similar roles. But this green tech initiative hasn't always been an easy ride, mainly from ill-fated test flights like this one in 2016. Wow, that's the smoothest crash landing I think I've ever seen. Komatsu L2350. The phrase titans of industry is rarely used in a literal sense, but when you take a look at the L2350, it's clear you're in the presence of a very real giant. This front-end wheel loader has an operating payload of 160,000 pounds, which means it can lift material weighing almost as much as a Boeing 727. These kinds of earth movers are four-wheel drives designed for strength, durability, and maneuverability around a construction site. And as it turns out, they also make for great novelty photo opportunities. No one tell the Instagram influencers. With its bucket fully raised, the L2350 reaches a grand height of 43 foot 11 inches, which means if you ever need to lift your personal jet onto the roof of your 4-story home, you can. But one of the main features you might first notice about this incredibly sized vehicle are the tires. Anyone who owns a car knows tires aren't exactly cheap, and just one of these 157-inch diameter tires can set you back around $100,000. And that's without the chain grip surrounding this particular one. Although unlike a regular car tire, I don't think standard potholes are going to be a problem for this absolute unit. 4100 AC Mining Shovel. There's more than one way to dig a hole, and with the variety of massive excavators on the market, there are many different technologies that take digging to incredible heights. Or technically depths, like P&H Mining's 4100 AC Mining Shovel. These types of machines use a series of steel ropes and winches controlled by electric engines to power their digging efforts, unlike more traditional hydraulic systems. But they can definitely keep up, working with an average payload of 180,000 pounds per scoop. That huge payload is thanks to that colossal bucket, which has the capacity to hold over 1,700 cubic feet of material. So in theory, it would take only 50 scoops from this behemoth's bucket to fill an entire Olympic pool. Although dropping it from its maximum dumping height of 31 feet might cause a bit of a splash. So make sure you look out below! Bucket wheel excavators. If you thought everything you'd seen till now was huge, just wait until you lay your eyes on this. Certified as the largest and heaviest series of land vehicles in the world, this humongous vehicle is a bucket wheel excavator. Despite the menacing chainsaw-looking wheel, the only things these machines cut through is the earth. They haven't been put to use as a weapon against Cthulhu just yet. Bucket wheel excavators of this size usually make up part of a continuous mining system. As the wheel at the front of the machine turns, large buckets attached to it scoop up earth before dropping it onto a conveyor belt. The ThyssenKrupp Bagger 288 you can see here has a wheel made up of 18 buckets, each one with a capacity of 233 cubic feet. That's enough to fill 44 bathtubs with earth for every scoop. With the wheel continually in motion, the Bagger 288 has the capacity to shift almost 8.5 million cubic feet, or roughly 380,000 tons of earth every single day. The 288's big brother, the Bagger 293, transports the same amount, but with a little extra junk in the trunk. This 315-foot tall, 738-foot long excavator holds the Guinness World Record title for both the largest and heaviest land vehicle. It requires 16.5 megawatts of power to run, which is about enough power to put 8 million smartphones on charge. At a staggering 14,196 tons in weight, the 293 can only achieve a top speed of 0.3 miles per hour. And yet, thanks to their ingeniously designed weight distribution, these machines leave tracks no deeper than a human footprint. They may move slow and steady, but if you ever want to move a mountain, these metal titans are still the best way to do it.